So thank you all for joining us on this Tuesday night. We're recording the meeting. We're going to post it to the YouTube channel. And so there'll be a couple of these, there'll be 5 of these. So just for posterity's sake, it is Tuesday, January 25th at 6 o'clock. And we're here to talk with you all about the Brambleton South Industrial Rezoning application. So to start with, we're going to run through a PowerPoint presentation. I'm going to walk through that. If you've got questions, we totally welcome questions. We're putting them together in a frequently asked questions document that we're hoping to have posted soon. But if you've got questions, I invite you to put them into the chat and send them to questions. I know, very intuitive, very simple, but go ahead and send them there. And that way we will have an opportunity at the end of the presentation to address those questions and to answer whatever you've got on your mind. Without further ado, I'm joined this evening by Steve Schulte. You probably know Steve. He is with the developer, Brambleton developer, and has worked with Brambleton for more than 20 years, well more than 20 years, since the very first home was constructed at Brambleton. So you have a sense for how long ago that was. My name is Colleen Gillis. I'm an attorney with Cooley, and I've had the pleasure of working with Brambleton on the community and in the development, not nearly as long as Steve, but about 18 years now. So really a good experience for me. So we know that there's a number of questions with regard to the Brambleton South Industrial application that's before the Board of Supervisors right now. We'll walk through the presentation, and if you've seen the presentation that we gave last week to the community, it's the same PowerPoint presentation, and it's very similar to the one that we gave to the Board of Supervisors as well. So in a moment, we'll pull up the presentation. We'll walk through it. Okay, so as I mentioned, Brambleton is in the midst of processing a rezoning application referred to in the county as Brambleton South Industrial Properties. The actual application number is ZMap 2020-0003, which means that it was the 3rd rezoning application filed in 2020, to give you a sense for how long this has been in process. Next slide. So first, let's set up the context here, okay? So this is, as many of you know, the overall Brambleton map. And we thought it was really important to start here so that those of you who may not know, may not be fully aware and appreciate how much of Brambleton has already been developed. Everything that's in red represents a lot or a home that has been developed, constructed, and has been conveyed out to an end user, which means it's a townhouse, a multifamily, a single family detached house. Everything that's in red is currently owner occupied, you know, in the sense that it is no longer controlled by a builder or the developer. Everything that is in purple, and you can see that the eastern portion of Birchwood is in purple. And then there's a section as well up in the northwest corner of Brambleton. The development that's in purple means that it's in some way, shape, or form in the midst of being conveyed out. It's trying to get to purple status, which means those lots are under construction. Some of them may have been conveyed out, some might not be. They might be in various stages of construction and delivery. Then the lots that are colored yellow, and those are all in the northwest corner of the project, those are lots that are not yet developed, not yet under sale, not yet conveyed out to end users. And so when you look at this map, you get a sense for really how much of Brambleton has been developed. Now there's 3 exceptions to that. In the southern portion of the property, you can see that there are 3 blue parcels. Parcel 1 is here, and that is right across the street, right on the south side of Evergreen Mills Road from Brambleton and Birchwood. In the corner of North Star Boulevard and Evergreen Mills Road, we're calling that parcel 2. We also refer to that as North Star East. And that is located directly across North Star Boulevard from the new gas station, and the CVS, probably really good ways to think of where that is. And then parcel number 3 is really all the way to the bottom of the Brambleton community. It is located on the north side of Arcola Mills Drive, and it's split in half, not equally in half, but split down the middle by Belmont Ridge Road. And so you can see Belmont Ridge Road is here. And so that's parcel number 3. I start here because as folks have reviewed this application and have reviewed this map, there's been a lot of concern that what we're talking about this evening is parcel 1 and putting a data center or industrial uses on parcel 1. That is not what this application is about. This application is a proposal to put PDIP uses, data center, and other industrial uses on parcel 3. As you can also see from this exhibit, is that parcel number 3 is separated from the balance of Brambleton by the Broad Run floodplain. And so you've got a significant area, we'll talk about it in greater detail, significant area of floodplain that separates what is envisioned to be residential to the north of the floodplain from this industrial parcel here. Next slide. So this is the actual boundary of the property. What's outlined in this hot pink fuchsia color is the boundary of the property. As I mentioned earlier, the property is bifurcated by Belmont Ridge Road, and it's located to the north side of Arcola Mills Drive. I really like this aerial image because it gives a good sense, not only where the parcel is, relative to Brambleton, but where is it relative to the other big things in the area? The most important one and the most obvious one as we look at this is that this parcel is right in the flight path of Dulles Airport, right? So you see that it's right there in the path of Dulles Airport. Additionally, the parcel is very close to the data centers, the AWS data centers that are on Loudoun County Parkway. There's a Google data center campus that's under development here. We've got more data centers over here. And then off to the west, you've got the Novak Service Center. Just off the slide here, I know you all are familiar with it, are the overhead transmission lines that run north to south that carry a lot of the power through this area. But it's obvious that from those surrounding uses that this is not like the balance of Brambleton. It's the rest of Brambleton is not in the flight path. It's not adjacent to these data centers and these other data centers and substations. Next slide. And this is the existing zoning. So again, carrying forward, the hot pink, the fuchsia color is the boundaries of this property. And so you can see that the property today is split zoned PDGI, Plan Development General Industrial, and CR1, which is Countryside Residential. Countryside Residential permits a very low density of residential. However, because it's located within the 65 LDN, which is the loudest noise contour on the county zoning map, because it's located within this area, new residential development is not permitted, meaning the residential that exists there today is grandfathered. It can continue to exist, but there's no opportunity for coming in and creating an extension of the Brambleton residential community as an example. That's not permitted because it's located within the 65 LDN. One thing I do want to note as we look at this map, parcel number 1 that we talked about in that earlier exhibit is right here. That parcel number 1 is currently zoned PDIP, Plan Development Industrial Park, which means that today we are permitted to do data centers on that property by right. Board of Supervisors wouldn't review it, wouldn't approve, would not get involved in the data center development on that property. We have that right today. That said, we are currently requesting a rezoning for residential development on this parcel because we think that residential is far more appropriate across Evergreen Mills Road from Birchwood and these homes in Brambleton than an industrial development here. So we are currently requesting a rezoning to take that out of an industrial zoning and put it into a residential zoning. But circling back, for the reasons I mentioned, being within the flight path from Dulles Airport and also being within that 65 LDN. And what I'm about to talk about is the reason why we're requesting a rezoning for the parcel outlined in purple. Next slide. And the county, the third reason is that the county in 2019 replanned as part of their countywide comprehensive plan update. They replanned the property for suburban industrial mineral extraction. Everything that's washed in that like light blue aqua color was replanned by the Board of Supervisors in June of 2019 for suburban industrial mineral extraction. Next slide. And what is that place type permit? This is straight out of the county's comprehensive plan. Core uses for suburban industrial, while it includes things like general and heavy manufacturing and assembly, warehousing, contractor with outdoor storage, it also includes data centers. So data centers being something that is generally, no traffic impacts or very limited traffic impacts. And we think creates any of those traffic impacts or neighborly impacts would be far more compatible with an adjacent residential community. And so that's part of the reason why we're in and requesting a rezoning for this PDIP zoning and requesting the possibility of doing data centers on the eastern portion of the property. Next slide. Now, when you look at that purple area, you might think it's right up against Brambleton, but it's really important to note that the developable portion of this property is closer to Evergreen Mills Road, is closer to Arcola Mills Drive than it is to Evergreen Mills Road. And there's a significant area of floodplain that separates the developable portion of this property from anything happening to the north. And so you can see here that everything that's in that light blue, that is actually floodplain on the property. And the floodplain at not its narrowest point, but also not its widest point, is about 800 feet in width. So significant separation from any of the development that would happen to the north from the development that we're proposing for this portion of the property. Very, very separated. Next slide. That floodplain, though, is not wide, flat, clear-cut land. Everything that's in purple on this slide represents a tree conservation area. And that tree conservation area has significant, tall, established hardwoods that we're proposing to preserve within the bounds of our application. And so all of that area that's purple will be preserved. And in fact, the only area on this plan that we would develop is the area that is diagonally crosshatched. And so you can see there's a dark black line that goes around the perimeter here. That dark black, within that dark black line with the diagonal striping through it, that's the only area that we could develop within this application. On the east side of Belmont Ridge Road would be where the data centers would go. Data centers are not permitted on the west side of Belmont Ridge Road. This is a change in the application from when we were at the Board of Supervisors. The developer has agreed to proffer out data center from the west, and also hearing the concerns about the monopole at the Brambleton Fire Station have also proffered out monopoles on the property as well. And so there will be no monopoles on the property. So on the east side, it's data center. On the west side here, it's PDIP uses, like a self-storage facility, like office, like those sorts of lighter uses on the west side of Belmont Ridge Road. The shape of the parcel just lends itself towards a smaller footprint, smaller impact on the west side because it's harder to fit a larger building within that envelope. Additionally, an important change since the Board of Supervisors public hearing. At the Board of Supervisors public hearing, we were requesting 4 million square feet of data center. Since the public hearing, we've agreed to cut that in half, and we're capping it at 2 million square feet. So a 50% reduction in what was permitted, what would have been permitted had the Board of Supervisors approved the application that night. On the west side, we had approximately 700,000 square feet that was being requested. After the public hearing, since the public hearing, we've reduced that to 350,000 square feet of development on the west side. Again, Our impacts, our analysis, staff support, planning commission support was based on these higher densities. We've reduced the densities on both sides of the road by half without asking for any sort of mitigation or accommodation in the amount of traffic impact or traffic improvements that we're making, or our commitments to trail network, which we'll talk about in a second. Next slide. So with this adjacency of the floodplain and the trees, we spent a lot of time looking at environmental and sustainable design here at the property. It's important to note that the natural resources team for the county has no outstanding issues with the application and hasn't had any outstanding issues with the application for months. In part, this is because of the significant areas of tree conservation, a risk car buffer, which is a river and stream corridor resources buffer, meaning that we are providing a buffer to the floodplain and the tree conservation areas in addition to just those resources themselves. The commitment to multiple LID measures, which are low impact development measures intended to benefit the environment and treat stormwater runoff. Pervious parking spaces, again, trying to reduce the impact. Latest habitat survey language, use of native planting species, making sure that we're committing to as much native plantings as we can get, and mechanical equipment testing restriction as well, so that we're restricting when we can test our mechanical equipment. So it's not impactful to anybody in the neighborhood. Next slide. But additionally, we've committed to building design standards, parking lot screening, pedestrian and bicycle facilities, on-site employee and visitor amenity spaces, and a 300-foot broad run linear park easement. This 300-foot broad run linear park easement will allow for Parks and Rec to create a linear park through the floodplain that will take people all the way up to the metro through the broad run floodplain. And this is really, really significant. If you haven't been down there, it's a gorgeous area to be able to walk. Great opportunity for recreation as well through this floodplain. All of that will be located outside of the perimeter of the data center, outside of the perimeter of the development on the west side of Belmont Ridge Road. And so it will be a benefit and an amenity to Brambleton residents as well as county residents. Next slide. These were the data center elevations that we shared at the Board of Supervisors public hearing. Since the Board of Supervisors public hearing, we've looked closely at the architecture with the end user and have upgraded the architecture. Next slide. This architecture, I'll show you the architectural slides in a moment. This is important. The architecture is important, but it's also really important to note that there is a huge 22 to 24 foot tall berm. This is a photo of it. You can drive on Evergreen Mills Road today and see this berm. There's a huge berm that is on the north side of the floodplain. This represents 50,000 cubic yards of dirt with established trees, as you can see, that were planted on top of it that create an additional buffer to the data center on the south side of the floodplain. Next slide. This is additional pictures of that berm. And just to give you a sense, for these photos are taken near Evergreen Mills Road. Gives you a sense for how far away the berm is from the road, number one. And number two, the power lines that run through the floodplain, you can see in the back here. They're very, very hard to see because they are so very far away. And to be clear, you've got Evergreen Mills Road, you've got area for development, then you've got the berm with established trees that are going to continue to mature. And when we take pictures of them, not in January, they will have leaves on them. And then beyond that, you have 800-foot wide floodplain with power lines. And then beyond that, there's a risk car buffer. And then beyond that is where the development would occur. So these data centers will be very, very far from existing residential units on the north side of Evergreen Mills Road. Next slide. So these are those upgraded elevations that we've attached to the proffers and committed to with this application. What you can see is that these buildings are office-like in nature. Definitely a different look than what we showed you 2 slides ago, and are pleased to commit to this. Additionally, the change in color from that gray color to these earth tone colors, we think is much more in keeping with the aesthetic, the design aesthetic that Brambleton has already established. Next slide. And these are some renderings that were done by the designers of the buildings, just to give you a sense. This is a different site. This is not relative to something that, this is not relative to our site, but these were elevations that were prepared to give a sense for what those facades might look like beyond those trees. Next slide. And this is with fewer trees and not the berm that we'll provide along Belmont Ridge Road, but this will give you another sense for what those elevations would look like. Obviously, these buildings really look like office. If you were driving by these, you'd go, gosh, that's an office building. It wouldn't necessarily jump out at you that it was a data center. And that's one of the things that we've been proud to upgrade those elevations so that it looks like this. But again, I want to reemphasize, with where they are situated on the property that we're talking about, there will be a berm between the road and these buildings and a type 3 buffer. So more landscaping than is being shown here. This is really to show and highlight the architecture that you would see if you could see beyond the berm and the landscaping. Next slide. One thing that we've heard quite a bit is about the concerns about Belmont Ridge Road needing to be improved. Now, let me start by saying data centers are notoriously low traffic generators. It's one of the things that has made data centers in Loudoun County attractive over the years, is that as we, struggled with traffic impacts in our traffic network, data centers were attractive because they were high tax revenue generators and very low transportation. They created very little traffic impact. And so we know that Belmont Ridge Road needs to be improved. And one of the things that's attractive about a data center development on the east side of Belmont Ridge Road is that it doesn't further deteriorate the road in a significant way. That said, we are also committing to significant transportation improvements to ensure that we can upgrade Belmont Ridge Road. And so what you can see here is significant additional striping and turn lanes for the entrances along Belmont Ridge Road. Next slide. But really importantly, for anybody who drives in this area, we're also proposing meaningful improvements to our Cola Mills Drive. And so this, if you drill down on the intersection of our Cola Mills Drive and Belmont Ridge Road, you'll see that there are additional turn lanes, additional widening for those who are staying on our Cola Mills Drive so that they can get into Briarfield, so that they can, readily move through this intersection in a safe, efficient way. Now, that said, it's really important to note that this is not the only thing that needs to be done to Belmont Ridge Road, and we acknowledge that. Parcel 1 that I talked about earlier and parcel 2, which I talked about earlier, are in for rezoning for residential. And we anticipate committing to a full upgrade of Belmont Ridge Road in connection with that application. And so that is going to necessitate a huge bridge over the Broad Run floodplain. As I mentioned earlier, that floodplain is 800 feet wide approximately. So the bridge that's going to be required to span that floodplain is a bridge that we anticipate costing between $25 and $30 million as of today, assuming no more supply chain issues, et cetera. So that improvement to Belmont Ridge Road, we hope, is coming in connection with that residential rezoning. But what we're doing with this application is teeing up important interim safety improvements to Belmont Ridge Road and our Cola Mills Drive to improve people's functioning and driving through this intersection prior to that application being approved. Next slide. With that, I'm happy to take any questions. I don't know if anybody has put any questions in the chat. Again, as a reminder, put your questions to questions in the chat and I will take them. Okay, so we've got a couple of questions. Awesome. Okay, one, how long is the construction of the data center expected to take? I don't know that I have the answer to that, Steve. Do you have the answer to that?
I have the answer that it doesn't take long. I mean, these guys really, time is money and they've been moving through these things. So and they come in phases. So I don't have the answer, but when they start constructing, it doesn't last long.
Great, great. Number 2, well, 1A, how much extra traffic is expected to be generated during this period? Chris Turnbull, we've got
let's introduce Chris. Chris is actually our transportation consultant that's been with us as long as I have, 22 years, you can see. And he's here to explain that. Chris, can you help?
Yeah, sure. Everyone can hear me. Glad to be here tonight. So the previous, the submittal of the proposal, we had approximately 3,663 average daily trips anticipated for the data center application. That was programmed for 3.74 million square feet. And then we had included up to 716,000 square foot for office use on the western parcel.
Which, Chris, I hate to interrupt, but that's the most intense possible use ever.
Correct.
So that's the worst case scenario, right?
That is the worst case scenario. And we did that to keep flexibility for any uses that we had, because office was the worst scenario. And that was sort of the item that was wagging the dog's tail, so to speak, that's 7,100 trips per day. So that's the total average daily trips of 10,824 trips per day. So that's over a 24-hour period. Peak hour traffic is usually about 10% of the average daily trips. And it's distributed across the network. So there's many different routes in which the trips are taking. We have North Star that's going to be completed soon, which is going to take a lot of the traffic off of Belmont Ridge Road, according to some of our forecasts and the county's forecast as well. And then there's other road networks, Evergreen Mills Road, or Carl Mills Drive. So they all take the traffic and distribute them from the site.
So Chris,
my point is that not all 10,000 trips are on Belmont Ridge Road where they have an entrance point.
So Chris, what is without our application, how much trips are going down Belmont Ridge Road, and how much are you saying that we're adding 10,000 trips, or is that?
And that's the total trip for the proposed application that we have. That doesn't include any changes in the development program that Colleen was talking about.
We would expect that number to drop significantly by the reduction in.
Correct, 50%. So those trips would be reduced by 50%. So 5,500 trips over a 24-hour period.
Okay. How much of the extra traffic is in the form of trucks and heavy duty vehicles? I'm going to jump in and say, I mean, other than the construction of the facility, which obviously will require normal construction traffic, including trucks. Once these uses are operational and constructed, those would be just normal passenger vehicles for the most part. We don't see that this being a very, we're not introducing heavy duty traffic that would necessitate dump trucks and things like that. Would you agree with that, Steve?
Well, no, I think, listen, I can't dictate when a dump truck is going to drive down Belmont Ridge Road. Okay. So it's a VDOT road. We can't, say, hey, this or that, but listen, the idea is to hopefully have construction traffic go out in the fastest form possible to wherever they need to be. But for the most part, they're going to be on site most of the time. They're going to be doing what's typical tilt up construction. So hopefully we don't have a lot of construction traffic coming in and out.
Right. I was saying, like, once we are operational, like we don't.
Once we're operational, you're not going to see much of it.
Right. Was a noise study conducted? If not, why? So with regard to a noise study, We didn't do a noise study, and that is completely typical and standard that we would not do a noise study in connection with the application. That said, we will have to comply with the noise ordinance and ensure that these uses are not creating any sort of noise levels in excess of what the ordinance permits. What upgrades are planned on the northern end of Belmont Ridge Road of Brambleton, i.e. up to the end near Belmont Ridge Road and Ryan Road? Steve?
So I guess this is more for Chris. Listen, the question is there was always planned to have so much traffic on Belmont Ridge Road. Okay, our uses are much less than what was planned by the county and the CTP. In addition to what it's happening now is North Star looks like it's getting closer to being completed in the next couple of years. Chris, maybe you can help, but that will also draw a lot of traffic off of Belmont Ridge Road. So Chris, maybe you can help me clarify what I'm trying to say.
Sure. So the road is planned. Belmont Ridge Road is a 4-lane divided roadway with turn lanes all from Ryan Road, from Ryan Road down to Evergreen Mills Road. I think it narrows a little bit as you go up to the high school and reconnects with North Star. But the study area, since that segment is carrying the traffic anticipated, the study area did not go up to that the extents of Belmont Ridge Road. I will say, however, I do understand that there's a safety study being done by Loudoun County that they've initiated in the beginning part of the end of 2021. And looking at the projects on the Loudoun County website, they've programmed a traffic signal warrant study, and if approved, a signal installation at Belmont Ridge Road and Legacy Park Drive. So those are the potential improvements on Belmont Ridge Road on the northern section of the property. In terms of how much traffic is going to change, I noted that North Star was going to come online, and it's going to reduce the number of trips on Belmont Ridge Road. And we in the county have estimated roughly about 7,000 trips per day would shift over to North Star or to other made connected roads, mostly North Star. And so that's going to decrease the amount of traffic that's expected at that location. I will know, I'm maybe getting a little ahead of myself, Steve, but we do have an application for that parcel 1 that for traffic analysis purposes, we plugged in with the IP zoning. So we've considered a worst case scenario for this traffic study, which puts traffic on these local roadway networks, but if we get our rezoning approved, that will decrease significantly as well.
Awesome. Residents all along the length of Brambleton's Belmont Ridge Road up to the north end and Ryan are suffering from extreme traffic noise and livability issues due to the proximity to Belmont Ridge Road, which was supposed to be a small road. Kindly request the developer to help with all safety barriers, all up to the north end of Belmont Ridge Road, all the way to the north end on Ryan Road.
So listen, right now, most of Belmont Ridge Road was designed in accordance to the countywide transportation plan. We followed all VDOT standards, all the protocols that were required. I don't know what we can do. It's a VDOT road. It's not in our purview to do anything with that at this point in time. So it's what we're talking about is making the best and the improvements within the application, widening the portion of Belmont Ridge Road to make it safer for where we are going to be doing or where this project is being proposed. But we don't have any proposals to do work within the VDOT right of way north of our application.
I have a home on Arcola Mills Drive, parcel 3, east of Belmont Ridge Road, north of the 65 LDN. What are the improvements to Arcola Mills Drive? We can pull that slide back up. Are there any proffers to provide for water sewer services to residents of Arcola Mills Drive?
So not my game, but but I know that there's a massive sewer line that runs down the Broad Run. So being able to get sewer there is, has a possibility because sewer's right on site. Water is, I guess, absolutely in the proximity. So, again, it would have to be done with an application, for those residents at that point in time to extend the leads for those. But again, I haven't studied that area for extension of water. So.
Thanks, Steve. So, and this is the exhibit that demonstrates the improvements. What is the improvements that are in red are and the turn lanes and the entrances, et cetera. Those are improvements that have been proffered with another application, and this demonstrates the red, and that's the difference between the red and the black. The red is being done by, yeah.
Yeah, so red's under construction right now in McCulling. I think it's a daycare right now, so in that location. So what we've done is we've tied into the improvements that they're making. And just so you know that the extension is in the box on the upper left, kind of ties back into existing Arcola Mills. On the very left-hand side, that's where the road's going to deviate and actually tie into North Star Boulevard in the future.
Excellent. Okay, next question. We probably take that down. Okay, next question. Can a no through trucks sign be placed along the whole length of Belmont Ridge Road in Brambleton to safeguard the residents? So I don't think that we have an answer to that. That's something that you should take up with the Board of Supervisors. They can absolutely work with VDOT on putting in no through trucks signs. Chris, I don't know if you have anything else that you would add to that.
No, I think that's correct. It would be an initiative from the board to VDOT to consider.
Great. To reduce traffic on an already busy and dangerous Belmont Ridge Road, can data center entrances be moved off of Belmont Ridge Road? Actually, they can't be, but maybe we need to if we can pull up the slides again and we can demonstrate. If we can go with, I think it's like slide maybe 6.
Or slide 2 actually is good too. We can kind of explain it from the big.
Well, let's go to the one that shows the CDP on both sides. Okay.
So that last one you can see.
Yeah,
I mean,
this is, well, go right after the floodplain one. Great, this one, proposed development.
There you go.
Great exhibit. So unfortunately, there is not enough distance between the intersection of Belmont Ridge Road and Arcola Mills Drive and the eastern boundary of the property to fit another entrance into the property. And so
you need it, right.
Yeah, so there's just not enough spacing, and we can't meet VDOT spacing requirements to provide for an entrance there. Obviously, adding another entrance, while you might take trips off of Belmont Ridge Road, you're obviously creating a lot of, you create another traffic impact there at that intersection. But again, I'm going to underscore additionally what I said earlier, which is data centers are notoriously, if not the lowest traffic generator in the Institute of Traffic Engineers manual. When they calculate which uses generate the most traffic, it's right at the bottom. It's a very low traffic generator. I don't know if Chris, you've got any other color to add to that.
No, that's pretty accurate. I mean, for commercial properties, that is pretty low, like close to hotel use. Storage facilities and those type of things.
Right. Awesome. Okay. Next question. We probably turn off the slides again. Let me just make sure. Chris, this is a question for you. Of the 5,500 ADT, how much goes north? ADT meaning average daily trips. How how much goes north on Belmont Ridge Road?
Okay, we had estimated with our scoping document, approximately 5% we use Belmont Ridge Road. 10% would, 10 to 11% would go up to North Star. Another 10% would go up towards Leesburg on Ryan Road. And then the other trips go through the other routes to the east and south.
Great, great. Okay, North Star project, I understand, is delayed by a decade. Can we really count on North Star completing anytime soon to mitigate the traffic generated? So I don't think Chris, you should speak to this. I don't think we're banking on North Star being completed to mitigate our traffic, are we?
No, not really. And in particular, when we're lowering our amount of developable space there, we're cutting our trips in half. So even if North Star was not in place, the trips would be accommodated with the improvements that we're proposing.
So Chris, I think that I've been talking to DTCI, Department of Capital Infrastructure, and they were at 80% plans. That I've actually, we're working with them to get right away. They're doing right away acquisition at the moment. Do you remember what the planned construction dates are for North Star?
I don't recall those, and maybe we can send a follow-up note in our.
So we can pull up and see, but I believe that it's in the 2025 range. So it's in the next couple years, and they have a Tiger grant. They have money, and the county's looking to push that through. And you can see that North Star's being extended on the south side of 50. So I think everybody's really waiting for this final improvement, this final leg. We have been forever to get that done.
That's a good point. The Tiger grant and NVTA all have monies in it, and they need to be expended in a certain time frame to clear out those federal dollars too.
Excellent. Next question. Are there any traffic diversions planned for the construction volume? Do you want to speak to that, Steve? What do you do?
Well, so listen, when you rebuild a road, much like Ryan Road is today, you have to flop traffic back and forth. So you're going to divert traffic back and forth in order to widen the road, especially when you start doing a bridge. You can only build half the bridge, and then push people onto the bridge that you just built, and then build the other half of the bridge. So for the purpose of constructing and widening Belmont Ridge to its ultimate section with the future application, yeah, there will be diversions. With the interim, there will be probably some time to get in and pave and top and everything else, some shorter term diversions.
Can you share who is the planned tenant for the data center? So we are in contract with a party that would construct a data center, but they do not have a contracted end user tenant for it. So we have somebody who's going to construct the data center, which is how we refine these images, but who's going to be in that data center? We don't have that information, and latest indications from our contract purchasers that information, they don't know it themselves just yet. Next question, can the results of the traffic analysis and studies be shared? Of course, for sure it can be shared, and we would be happy to provide that information. It is an enormous file. If you can send an email to info@brambleton.com, we'd be happy to send it back to you. And maybe you have insomnia. Sorry, Chris, no offense. But you want to read this in the middle of the night, it's a lot of data, it's a lot of information, and you'll see how comprehensively it was studied. Do you want to say something else, Steve?
No, I think that we don't, Chris, we haven't incorporated the changes for the reduction of the FAR into that study. So that study is missing that information.
Good point.
Right. So when you look at it, just keep in mind that we're cutting the trips in half.
Right.
But we're still keeping the levels of service, or how the intersections operate, at very good levels of service. So they're going to work even better when we cut those trips out.
Right. One more, I want to circle back on the question earlier with regard to water and sewer that was asked, is there plans for us to proffer to water and sewer? Would encourage you to reach out to the Board of Supervisors. with that, with your desire for water and sewer to help with that. They definitely could have a role to play in that. I'll read a comment. A comment was that really appreciate all the clarification and answers. Thank you. So thank you for giving us positive feedback. We appreciate it. And that wraps up the questions that we've received so far. I mean, I'm going to hang out here for a minute or two in case anybody else has another question. But if you don't have questions, that's okay too. What we are going to do, like I said, this presentation has been recorded along with the other one, and we're putting together a frequently asked questions document, and we will be posting and sharing that information soon. We just have to do the work to edit it and make sure that it's that we've edited out all the ums and I guess and ahas and likes, but we'll be putting all of that together very soon and sharing it with you all. If you have questions after the end of this meeting, obviously I'll say it again, info@brambleton.com, info@brambleton.com. And we're happy to answer whatever questions you have. There are, as you may know, 3 additional meetings coming up. The next one is tomorrow night at 7 o'clock. It will go a lot like this. You know, we might get different questions or whatnot. And again, those videos will be posted as well. But we will make the same presentation tomorrow night. And if you've got questions in the meantime, don't hesitate to shout. Anything else, Steve? Anything else, Chris? Okay. Well, thanks so much for spending your Tuesday night with us here in your house, from our home to yours. Thank you so much for taking the time. And again, don't be a stranger if you've got questions. We're here to help.
Yeah.
Have a great
night. Thank you guys for watching, and thank you again.
Bye.